Welcome to Film Strip, movie reviews presented by Continuous Play Podcast. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Kurt.
And this is our review of Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens, starring Harrison Ford, Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Carrie Fisher, Domhnall Gleeson, Peter Mayhew, and Mark Hamill for about 8 seconds. Directed by J.J. Abrams, released obviously December 2015, budget of $200 million, grossed over $1.5 billion at the time that we're recording this here in the January of 2016, on track to be the biggest grossing film of all time, right? Like, it's right on Avatar's heels at this point.
Oh yeah, and Avatar. Everyone went into Avatar blind without any love for the characters, and but I think people are just going over and over again to Star Wars more, and not even for the movie necessarily, just for that sense of nostalgia that this movie is just soaked in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they could have called it the Nostalgia Awakens for all it's really about. I mean, really, we'll get into that as we go. But yeah, I myself saw it twice, going into this one. So, how many times have you been to the theater and caught it?
Well, I saw it twice. I happened to be in the area to be able to see it on the first showing on the first Friday.
Nice.
And the thing about that is, I mean, I watched that movie. I wanted to see that movie as soon as possible, not just because I wanted to see it, but I just wanted to get ahead of the freaking spoilers. There's never. I can't believe the amount of people out here that have just been desperate to spoil this movie on Facebook. Luckily, I had it spoiled for me, but not by people on Facebook who are literally coming out of the movie saying, "So and so dies, ha ha ha, I win." And it's just like vicious and mean in a way that I've never seen before. So I had to see this movie ASAP to just to get that out of my head. But then I watched it the next day with actual people with me, and enjoyed it a lot more. And we'll get into it. But like one of the big things about seeing the movie the first time is getting rid of those expectations, because I don't think any movie ever made. You'd have to go back to maybe Indiana Jones 3, and before that, Godfather 3, in terms of like a return to a beloved series. I don't think any movie has been as hyped as this, just ever. Because this is a movie that people have been talking. This is like Indiana Jones 4 is one thing. People kind of thought, the book was closed, trilogy, that's fantastic. But Star Wars is a movie that everyone has been just begging for since, like, never mind the prequels. Since '83, they've been waiting for the next, Han Solo, Luke, and Leia, Chewie story. And so there's just never been as much fan expectation and excitement for a movie before.
I'll say this: when the Phantom Menace was dawned upon us, and before anybody saw it, and the trailer came out, and all this stuff, that was the most overload expectations I had ever experienced to my life. But up until this came out, that was the number one. But I agree with you. I think this one has had more lead up, more build up, more pub type hype, all that stuff than any of the previous film iterations. And you talk about spoilers. I somehow stayed spoiler free, and I didn't see this thing until it had been out like a week and a half.
I don't know how you did.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, traveling with during the holidays helped a good bit. Had some family stuff to deal with, and I just sort of got off of social media for about a week there, and I feel filters on Twitter are a wonderful thing, by the way, and I just averted my eyes, but I made a conscious decision going into this one that I didn't want to know. Usually I'm spoiler heavy guy. I want to know it all. I want to know what I'm getting into, and then I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that, generally. I've read full scripts of films before. I've gone and seen them before, so not a problem for me. But in this one, I said, I'm going to go into this like my friend Podcasting's Brock does when he goes to see theatrical films. He goes totally spoiler-free. Now, he works a lot, and he's got 2 small kids, so that helps him accomplish that. With me, I don't have anything else to do except work and, podcasts, so I have to actively work at that. But I made a decision. I was like, you know what? That teaser trailer came out. I'll watch the heck out of it. Then the first, the long trailer came out. And I was so jazzed. And I watched it again. And then I said I'm not watching it anymore. I'm not listening. I'm not talking to anybody about this. I'm going total spoiler-free into this as much as I can. I only saw the trailer one more time, and it's because my wife and I went and saw the conclusion of the Hunger Games saga, and they played it before that. And, like, I had hair standing up on my arms. I'm sitting there kind of geeking out, and she's like, you really do like Star Wars. And my wife, not a Star Wars person at all. Like, her house, they didn't watch it growing up. They watched old reruns of, like, bad Star Trek. So it ruined for her. So she's never seen Star Wars, didn't care anything about it. So I'm sitting there just like, this is going to be awesome, but then I was like, okay, must forget, must not, think. I don't know who these people are. So I really knew nothing going in. And I think also having waited as long as I did, I caught this in the middle of a huge downpour on a Monday afternoon, just a random Monday, because I knew I wanted to go see it that week at some point, and I was really stuck in another town because it was raining so bad I didn't want to drive through it, and I said, there's a movie theater across the street from me, I'll just go watch it. And I went in with about a half full crowd and a bunch of, like, small kids, and I thought, oh, this is going to be brutal. But, and I'll say this to the film's credit for anything else I say about it today, those kids were, like, mesmerized for the 2-hour and 10-minute runtime of it. The trailers, everybody's noisy, I don't care about. But the movie started, and they were just, like, in their seats blown away. So that was a cool experience for me. And then I went and saw it again a few days ago because I wanted to refresh myself before we recorded this. And I saw it both times in 2D. Did you see it in 3D?
Oh, no, I made a conscious decision not to see this movie in 2D. Like all movies, I just say... I make it's a hunt to find the 2D screenings of any movie.
Yeah.
And luckily I was able to.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I had to hunt for them as well, but I'm not a fan of post-conversion migraines, I call them.
Right.
And so I just avoided it. And from what I've heard, it you don't really gain anything from that experience. So, but yeah, I mean, a ton of build up and things like that. Now, what did you know going in besides the fact that you got, spoiled by idiots on the internet about it? And people that do that, by the way, you just come on.
Oh now. Yeah, there's a special place in hell for the people who spoil a movie that several people have waited literally 10 years for since Revenge of the Sith.
Exactly.
And then they ruin it like like 2 minutes after they see it. But,
that's terrible.
As for knowing what happened, I've been following this movie since it was since that day that it was announced that Lucas is selling the rights or whatever you want to call that deal. He was giving it to Disney.
Yeah.
And it was the exact same, like, in the exact same news article was he's selling the rights and Disney already has like 3 Star Wars movies in the works, like that same day. I think they might have even had the release dates.
Oh yeah.
That very same day, which I've never seen before. I've never seen it that quick. Maybe there was dealings for months before that.
I think there was. I think there were deals going on. I mean, Lucas had been kind of floating that out there for a while to see who would be interested. And when the deal was getting, the ink was drying on the paper, the stories were running around, and J.J. Abrams was getting involved, and Lawrence Kasdan and all those kind of people.
Oh yeah, and like I even did a podcast with the Hollywood Gauntlet people. The whole thing was just about. What do we think is the movie going to be? And we spent a lot of time talking about who is going to, not so much the story, but the big thing is who is going to direct this movie, because that's a big deal. And we threw out every single conceivable name. And the thing about it was, like, any name was plausible. Like, this is something that a guy as like geeky or nerdy as like a Joss Whedon could absolutely make. And at the same time, a guy like Christopher Nolan could absolutely make this movie. Like every director I could think of, it's like there's so many people, even like David Fincher, Alfonso Cuarón, Guillermo del Toro. There's nobody who wouldn't probably have at least one good Star Wars movie in them. And the way they're going to be cranking these movies out one a year, maybe one day we will get everyone making a Star Wars movie.
And they may do it with all the spinoffs and these too. I think you're right. That's a fantastic episode of the Hollywood Gauntlet, by the way. Not to drive people away from our show for a minute, but
yeah, right.
I mean they're friends of ours. I mean, John did the voiceovers for the first 6 parts of this series we did. So yeah, it's called I think What Happened to Star Wars or something like that. Go check it out. Go to Hollywood Gauntlet. You can find it on iTunes folks. It's fantastic. So yeah, I remember that. I remember listening to that, and I think I downloaded that show, and it was one of my marathon running shows because Hollywood Gauntlet show's a little long, but that's okay because it's good stuff. You got 10 people in a room, pretty much. It's good. But yeah, let's talk about J.J. Abrams then just for a minute, because when he did get attached, my first thought was, well, he made the last 2 good Star Wars films. They were just called Star Trek, and I didn't even like Into Darkness that much. I thought, it's all right. It's kind of like a, I don't know, it was sort of a knockoff, but it was okay. But I thought the action in it was fantastic, and that reboot of Star Trek I thought was genius. I mean, I thought that's exactly how you should handle that, man. And so I was cool with the idea of J.J. Abrams, plus everything else he's touched. From television to other movies he's done. I was a big fan of Super 8, and I love Cloverfield, and he had a lot to do with that. And, I mean, the guy just does stuff that I tend to go for. I liked his Mission Impossible, so I was excited when I found out he was going to be involved.
Yeah, and on the Hollywood Gauntlet show, I think everyone on the pod at least said a prediction J.J. Abrams is probably going to make it. And some people weren't okay with it, but when I heard J.J. Abrams was like, he's the director, Episode 7, it's his. I don't know if I was ecstatic, but I breathed a sigh of relief. Like it wasn't. I'm trying to think of like a good bad choice. I forget it was McG. If it was McG making Episode 7, I'd be upset. But when I heard J.J. Abrams, I thought, oh, okay, like that'll be fine, because some people don't like him because of all the lens flares and so on. But the movies you mentioned, like Mission Impossible 3, I remember the first time I saw that, what struck me was, geez, someone made another good movie out of Mission Impossible. And that's kind of what the thing about that whole series. Every time they make it, it's like, really, they managed to squeeze some more juice out of that lemon, and it's actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah, look, I'll tell you now, Rogue Nation was a real blast. I mean, don't think about it too hard, or else it's ridiculous, but that's kind of fun. They figured out what to do with it, but I think JJ started that, actually. I think that series was a little off kilter the first 2 times around, and he really set it in motion. So with that third part, and I am one of the people that made the lens flare jokes. I will go ahead and own up to those. I was like, I love Star Wars, but I need my lens flare.
Oh yeah, and the main reason why I really breathed a sigh of relief, it wasn't so much. I did like Super 8, but not so much that. But it was that 2009 Star Trek movie, the Into Darkness. I don't think it'd come out just yet, or it might have. Anyway, but when I've watched that Star Trek thing, similarly with Mission Impossible, it's like somewhat like J.J. Abrams managed to take something that had been done to death. There have been 10 Star Trek movies, 7 of the Kirk and Spock story, and I was so blown away by that movie. It's like, this is just so, like, he took something so old guard and just spun it into something fresh and new and fun, and at the same time very much of the original Star Trek series. And so I thought, he's kind of a perfect choice for, if you want to not reinvent Star Wars, but if you want to like reboot it, he is the guy. And I would say, like, for the most part, what he did in this movie was what I expected, and it was like, and I was happy with. And we'll get into that.
Oh yeah, and I think before we go any further, let's go ahead and do a plot summary. I can't imagine anyone listening to this hasn't seen it at least once, if not twice. But give everybody kind of the overview, the highlights of what happens in The Force Awakens, and then we'll dig into it a little deeper.
Sure thing. And for the love of God, you have been warned. If you have not seen The Force Awakens, stop listening right now. So, it's been over 30 years since Darth Vader has died, the Emperor killed, and the Empire defeated. Luke Skywalker has gone into hiding after his attempt to rebuild the Jedi Knights ended in failure. Stormtrooper Finn, Scavenger Rey, and X-Wing pilot Poe Dameron join Han Solo, Chewbacca, Leia Organa, and the Resistance in the battle against the First Order, which has risen from the ashes of the Empire, and the search for Skywalker. The First Order, led by Kylo Ren, Han Solo and Leia's son, and Supreme Leader Snoke, develop a planet-sized weapon capable of destroying multiple planets at once. The Resistance attacks this new Starkiller weapon, while also trying to free Rey from the clutches of Kylo Ren. And when Han Solo finally confronts his son, Kylo, and attempts to win him back from the dark side, Kylo kills him. Kylo Ren is defeated by Finn and Rey in a lightsaber duel just as the Resistance destroys the Starkiller, and R2-D2 then comes back to life and helps lead the way for Rey to find Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, that is a very good and tight summary. There's so much that we can get into here with this. And I want to start by talking about our new characters and then our returning old characters. Because the old characters, it's something that's easy to remember because that was such a big deal. Because the first thing JJ said was, we're doing it with Harrison and Carrie and Mark. And so we'll get into them. But let's talk about our new ones. And I'll tell you now, I absolutely adore Daisy Ridley and John Boyega together. And I said this the first time I was watching it, and then the second time I watched it, I reconfirmed. It actually made me go and dig this other movie up and watch it again. I hadn't seen that good a chemistry between young actors on a set in a big epic film like this since Titanic. Like, they had that Leo and Kate thing, and it's not even heavy as romantic. It's just they just seemed to go well together. They played well together. They looked like they were having fun, and I don't know either one of them from anything. I'll say that now. I know none of the new cast from anything else they've done, if they've done anything. But I was taken by those two in particular above everything else that's new here. Those really got me, and the new robot BB-8. I adore that little thing, more for the fact that afterward I thought, man, that was some incredible CGI, and then I look it up and I'm like, no, it's a couple of magnets. That's awesome. It's a practical effect. The Disney Imagineers created that for this movie. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that BB-8, that was a thing. In that first teaser, which did blow me away, when they show this, the head staying still on top of a soccer ball that's rolling down the desert, I was like, well, that is some good CGI. Then you look it up and it's like, well, what do you mean it's real? It's like, that's not real. Then they actually, I think it was some kind of a fan expo thing, and there it comes, a BB-8 rolling out onto the stage, and it's like, well, son of a bitch. Like that droid in and of itself was kind of it was a sign of things to come, and another sigh of relief. That's like, oh, they're going to do some practical effects in this movie.
There's the last one. Yeah, there's a lot of practicals in here. As a matter of fact, I'll say now, the fact that they went back to some practical effects was a big sigh for me too, because the CGI in this isn't that grand, honestly, but the practicals totally make up for all of it. But as far as new characters go, again, Rey and Finn, I immediately lock into and just loved them just from the outset. And that's nothing against Kylo Ren or Poe or any of the other people that were new, but those two were really, and I think those two are our avatars for this movie too. But I found them just fascinating. Now, what of the new characters were the ones that really stuck out for you, though?
Well, I do like Finn and Rey a lot. I'm very much looking forward to seeing where they're going to go with this. But my two favorite characters were the other ones you touched on. Poe Dameron. While John Boyega and Daisy Ridley are rather unknown, they went for some name actors in this movie, not just kickstarting the careers of some unknowns. And Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac, is one of the best actors working today, at least in one of my favorites. I first saw him in Drive. He took a character.
He was in Drive?
Yeah,
wow.
He played the guy who gets out of prison.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even recognize him. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, wow.
Like he took that character, like this guy comes out of prison and comes in between. He very much becomes a wrench in this relationship between Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan. And it's a character that it should be unsympathetic. And somehow he made him one of the more likable characters in that movie. Like, first time I saw him, I was like, oh, here we go, the scumbag, boyfriend out of the clink. And then it's like, no, he's actually not a bad guy. And so it wasn't a huge part, but he made an impression on in that movie. But the big one was when I saw him in Inside Llewyn Davis by the Coen brothers in 2013. That's a movie that took me 2 viewings to get. But after that, it really became one of my favorite movies this decade. He is just fantastic in it. And then it's in 2014. He did A Most Violent Year, which also took me 2 viewings to get. That's a purposefully slow, brooding crime drama. And Oscar Isaac in that movie, totally unlike anything else he did before, is there's no other words for it. He's doing Al Pacino in The Godfather in that movie. He has this scene where he's demonstrating how to sell heating oil, and it's a weird scene, but the way he's performing it is like, if they ever remade The Godfather, there's your Michael Corleone right there. It'd be perfect. And then 2015, he's got 2 movies. He was in this, and he was in Ex Machina, and he stole that movie, in my opinion. It has this combination of like Tony Stark and Dr. Frankenstein trying to create artificial intelligence, and he's really funny in that. And now in this movie, despite all the character work he's done in the past, there's no question. Like no one, like as good as those movies are, no one's going to remember them compared to this movie. This is what he'll be remembered for forever. He's already become one of the most beloved actors of all time. So many memes going on about this guy. And he is exactly the character. This character, Poe Dameron, is exactly what I said in the previous pods was missing in the prequels. And that's he's a character. He has nothing to do with Jedis or lightsabers. He's just a guy with a gun. And he's very much, what he is like the new Han Solo, I'd say. Like that opening bit where he stares down Kylo Ren. There's a moment of silence, and he says, Who talks first? Do I talk first? And it was the first joke laugh of the movie, and that's when he became my favorite performance in this movie, at least. But my only problem, he's barely in the movie.
Well, I feel like he's in it a perfect amount because I realize he is going to be a bigger deal later on, but they sell him to us in that opening crawl. General Leia Organa has sent her most daring pilot to go get this, and you meet him in the tent with Max von Sydow. What the hell is he doing here? But I guess he's got a couple more houses to pay off, whatever. But hey, he's there, and I love this whole bit. But that whole back and forth, all that is total J.J. Abrams. And I'm like, yes, we get that snarky thing, but you've got to have an actor that can pull that off. And again, I don't know this guy from anything else, but I thought this is fantastic. It actually made me want to go and look up all this other stuff he's been in that you're mentioning here, because I had read his IMDb after that, and I said I got to see this guy in other things because he was so charismatic.
Yeah.
And I think it's a contrast to our other two characters, or the three really new characters here, and. The thing about him is that we don't even have to meet him, know his story, anything. He's just he's like we talked about in the original trilogy. He's that Han Solo. He's that blondie gunslinger from the spaghetti westerns. He's just a badass, and he doesn't care. Like, he has no fear whatsoever. He's standing in front of the baddest guy in the galaxy, supposedly, with a ton of stormtroopers and a huge lightsaber around him, who, by the way, blocked a shot, one of the coolest force powers ever. He blocks a bolt and then lets it sit there for 10 minutes. I'm like, no, that's cool. And he's still not scared of the guy. So, yeah, he's pretty fantastic.
Oh, yeah. And I was genuinely concerned because of how much I like this guy. I've been watching Game of Thrones too much. I like this character so much.
You thought he was going to get killed.
I was like, he's going to get killed, because in that trailer they make it look like when Kylo Ren's kind of forced torturing him there. It's like it makes him look like, oh man, does he die in that scene? Because I like the actor so much and the character. Oh, they're going to kill this guy off just to make a statement, like this is what kind of movie it's going to be. They're going to start killing people off like it's Snowpiercer.
Now that would have been Joss Whedon's answer, by the way,
for sure. But luckily, he survives the movie, so he's probably going to, and he better have a bigger part in the next movie.
Absolutely. Now, you said you had another one though that was big for you, and I think that's Kylo Ren, right?
Oh, absolutely, Kylo Ren. Adam Driver. Now, what's awesome is he is also inside Llewyn Davis, and he gets maybe the most memorable scene in the movie, singing this ridiculous novelty song about space travel with Oscar Isaac. And everyone, even if you haven't seen the movie, everyone do yourself a favor, find that scene on YouTube. It's just so weird and funny. And here he is now as the new villain in Star Wars, very much taking over for Darth Vader. He says it in the movie, finish what you started. And I love that outfit and that mask and that voice. Now, when I first watched the movie, and I thought, man, this guy's voice is so cool, I thought maybe they were altering his voice to sound more menacing. And then I saw Adam Driver on Jimmy Fallon and doing interviews and stuff, and he sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, if anything, they added a little bit of Bane reverb to it, but that's about it. Yeah.
He has one of the most deepest voices ever, and when you put that voice through a kind of a maybe intentionally cheap sound of like radio-like filter, it just sounds awesome. And he ends up getting, in my opinion, the best scene in the movie, which we'll cover. And lastly, I want to touch on one guy, Domhnall Gleeson.
The evil ginger, I called him. So.
Yeah, the evil ginger. He's the only guy in this movie I didn't like. I think the acting across the board is very good, except for this guy. I hated this character and this performance, this General Hux. He's the new Grand Moff Tarkin, except Gleason's no Peter Cushing, at least not in this movie. Like,
no, not at all. He plays it more like a Hitler on meth. I mean, he's out of his mind. So.
Yeah, that speech he gives like before the Star Killer fires. Like, I was with the movie. I was very much in the movie. I wasn't thinking about the outside world. But when he started giving that speech, I just thought it's like that felt like something out of like another movie. Like that felt something out of Eddie Redmayne and Jupiter Ascending, or something. I was just thinking, man, it took me completely out of it. I thought, man, this is awful. And I haven't felt like that. Like that's the only time I felt like that in the movie, and it's a shame. Because Gleason's a terrific actor. He's always good in stuff like the last two Harry Potter movies. He was one of the redheads. What's that?
He was one of the twins. Yeah, he's one of the Weasleys. Yeah. So.
And he was in True Grit. He was in Dread. He was in a terrific episode of the BBC series Black Mirror. And he was also in Ex Machina from 2015, and he was really good in that. And just the other day, I saw him in The Revenant. In your Reader's movie, and he's superb in that. So I don't know what happened, but when he's standing next to Kylo Ren, he really pales in comparison. And he, in my opinion, he was the weakest part of this movie, and he didn't die, unlike Grand Moff Tarkin, which I think is kind of a shame. Kind of like, oh, so what? So it's great to look forward to more of this guy.
I liked the fact that he didn't die, though, because I think he's a weasel. So the fact that he weaseled his way out of it and got away, I'm like, well, that just means he's going to die even more spectacularly later. You know, so I mean, that's all that means. So
it'll be worth it when Kylo Ren turns on him or something.
Or he gets cut in half by one of his own guys or something like that. No, he's an interesting one. I had a different take on him. I actually kind of liked the performance. It was totally over the top and crazy. It's the only performance in the film that reminded me of the prequels. Of somebody who didn't realize what they were standing in front of, and they just kind of went with it, you know. And I don't know that he got a lot of direction that day. He does come off like a dime store Ewan McGregor a little bit. Like he even looks like him a little bit to me, or a younger Ewan, I guess. So I was okay with it. I think everybody was playing it so down and, for lack of a better way, emo. You know, on the First Order this time, somebody had to be over the top. So I was cool that it was him, and I will say this film is littered with cameos and people in it here and there and stuff. The one I did not realize who it was, and I should have caught the voice, is the chromed out stormtrooper that's Brienne of Tarth. I don't know the actress's name. I can't remember. I'm sorry. Gwendolyn. I knew it was Gwendolyn. Yeah. I'm like, Star Wars could probably be the futuristic version of Westeros. How do we know that's not like a long lost relative? So at some point, I thought she was. The voice just kept ringing to me when I found out that's who it was. I was like, they should at least let her have the mask off just once, because the fact that she got thrown down the trash compactor, I'm like, oh, that sucks,
Luckily, she's actually, if you go on IMDb, she's listed for episode 7. So I hope she comes back, because I was like, I'm a huge fan of Gwendolyn Christie and that character on Game of Thrones. When I heard that she's going to be this in terms of like outfit, she's got the Boba Fett outfit, the best outfit, but maybe the lamest character, because
then she's like the original Boba Fett, who looks cool and does absolutely nothing. So.
Yeah, when you see that she's going to be playing, Captain Phasma, she's got that cape, and she like Gwendolyn Christie, she's like, she's 7 feet tall. So you think, oh, it's going to be like some kind of, maybe like a fight with Chewie, or she's going to be like, taking on Han Solo, and she literally does nothing. Like the point, like they really could have gotten anyone, and they got a great actress to play that part. And that could have been literally anyone. Like, for instance, like Daniel Craig, who just shows up for a voice. Doesn't take his helmet off either.
Yeah, well, he's the one that gets Force used to open the door and drop your weapon. So which the first time I saw it, I was like, I wonder if that was Daniel Craig's cameo. The second time, I was like, that's totally Daniel Craig.
I felt pretty stupid. Like I saw Spectre a couple weeks prior, and it's like I know Daniel Craig's voice, and I was like, who is that guy? And
it's not even the voice; it's just the movement. He does this one little shrug, and I'm like, that's totally Daniel Craig showing us that's him. So but anyway, this movie's littered with those. But the thing that got everybody excited was the fact that Luke, Han, and Leia were coming back for this. And like we've already said, and I said it in the intro, and you mentioned it there at the end, Luke shows up on a hill at the very end, looking rather distraught, and kind of like a I guess he's supposed to look like Alec Guinness now, and he kind of does.
Yes.
So I guess he kind of does. He's a little shorter. He's a little short for a Jedi Master, but he'll do. So, yeah, he's in it for like no time at all. So we really can't talk about him until we get to the end. But Han and Leia are in this thing like straightforward. And the thing that I will say now is, and I'm one of the few people on Earth that can watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and not want to rip my eyes out. And I think it's because I just look at it and go, it's just kind of stupid. I mean, it's not really great, but it's just kind of stupid. And Harrison Ford's really kind of mailing it in. That's the thing I ding that movie for more than anything is like, Spielberg and Lucas couldn't even get him interested in this. Whatever J.J. Abrams did, whether it was all the zeros and the points coming off the end of this or what, Harrison Ford looked like he was having fun playing an old character. And the thing about him I've always admired as an actor is, and he says it too, he comes from the acting school of let's pretend. If I get the character and I see it there on the paper, then I can pretend to be anything. And I've seen the man be the president. I've seen him be the greatest CIA agent of all time. I've seen him be a swashbuckler or a professor. He's been a murderer that was married to Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, he's played all kinds of stuff. He played a man that got shot in the head and had to recover from it. He was fantastic in Regarding Henry. I mean, I'm like, this guy's done everything at this point, right? He even made Anne Hesh look funny. For about 12 minutes of 40 Days and 40 Nights. And so, I mean, I like Harrison Ford. And to watch him when he steps on the Millennium Falcon through everything he does in this, he looked like he was having such a blast. And it was so good to see him back. But even though I went spoiler-free in this, Kurt, I knew one thing was true. The only way Harrison Ford is going to do this is if they pay him outrageously, which they did and will, and if he gets the wish he's wanted since 1980, which is to die. And I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't see it coming didn't even see it coming when it did happen, as much as it's set up there for us the first time. But I thought Han Solo is going to die and everybody's going to lose their friggin' minds.
Harrison Ford in this movie, he might look a lot different, but like he really hasn't missed a step with that character. Felt like, I mean, it felt like it was nice to see Han Solo back to his old, slightly dark self, not loopy and goofy from the hibernation sickness and Jedi. But about Ford as an actor, I think this really is Harrison Ford's best performance since. I'd go back to the 90s since.
I'd say since probably something like Air Force One or The Fugitive. Yeah, it's been a while since he did one like this. Yeah,
and you hit the nail on the head in terms of it's just like he looks like he's having fun. And even look at interviews with him in 2013. He looks like he is stoned out of his mind.
He probably was.
Yeah, he probably was. But then you look at him in interviews now, he's really funny, he's got energy. He has more energy now than you go back and watch him in 82 when he's promoting Blade Runner. And he just seems so happy, and he's like in his 70s now, and he is just so good in this movie. Now, Oscar nomination might be a stretch, but he is just so fun to watch in this. He definitely was the most fun actor to watch. The toss up between him and Oscar Isaac for me. But with the character, it was awesome. The way they portray Han Solo and Leia and Luke is that they've become these legends of myth in the galaxy. Like when they see him, he's known around the galaxy as the rebel general who helped defeat the Empire. And as a Star Wars fan who knows this series, to its core, it's so heartwarming thinking about how when we first met him, he was just some guy slumped over in a chair in that cantina who happened to be the smuggler that Obi-Wan and Luke bumped into in the Mos Eisley Cantina that day. And now he's this hero of legend, like King Arthur or something. And it was it was special.
He was the fastest pilot they could find in the bar that day. That was what he was, and he was the total gunslinger, and he was, he was just the outsider, and that's what made him so cool and why everybody loved him. And he's still playing that character. What's the thing? The funny thing about all of this is that everybody's like, "You're Han Solo, the great smuggler. You're Han Solo, the war hero." And I think one of the characters asked Chewie that, and he's like, "I don't know." And I love how they keep poking fun at it, like that. And he's like, "You did it in 14 parsecs, no 12, 14."
That was
he's irritated by his own legend. But in the other hand, he's just sort of hanging out Like, he's just going back to, I think he says to Leia at one point, I just went back to doing the only thing I was ever any good at, which is stealing stuff from people. And, he does get a good, funny scene with the two clans that he's basically ripping off for the same thing before the terrible CGI monsters attack, and which is the worst scene in this film by far. But beyond that, it does give us one thing. He grabs one random guy and throws him in front of the monster, which is the total, I shot first moment.
That was that was
never forget I shot first. So because he was dark again, and I think that was cool. But the thing that just totally ripped me in the trailers and was a great scene, even still in the movie, having seen it a couple times, was the lines that he lays on Finn and Rey about, the funny thing about all that Jedi stuff is it's all true. Like the most doubtful cynic of all of them had become a believer, having lived through it.
Yeah, I heard people say with that last trailer that came out, they said they teared up in the trailer, and it's like, well, what are they talking about? And then they cut to Han Solo, dead serious on his face, talking about the dark side, the Jedi, they're real, and it's like it was. I didn't tear up, but it's like, I felt like I've never felt like that before. It's like, wow, I don't know why this feels so powerful. It's like a powerful moment because he is a changed man. Since we've met him, he's seen some stuff. He's the guy who shot Darth Vader, and Darth Vader ripped the gun out of his hands from 50 feet away. So he now believes in the Force for sure. Because when we first met him, he's the guy who says, it's all a bunch of simple tricks and nonsense. And today he's like, well, it's all real. Like when Han Solo is turned into a believer, it's something to believe in, and it's a defining moment for the character.
Yeah, and it plays well against the. I mean, you're talking about 4 generations difference, between him and his counterparts here now, and the way he plays it works perfectly. I mean, it's a perfect marriage between the two, and I think he gets he gets top billing, and he gets the biggest piece of the action for sure. Leia, on the other hand, gets. I don't know. Nothing against Carrie Fisher. I actually think Carrie Fisher's a very brave person to be as open and talk about the problems she's had and her addictions and her mental health and the amount of awareness she's raised. She's a fantastic writer in her own right. So I like Carrie Fisher for things beyond being Princess Leia and stuff. And she's always been the one that would poke fun at herself, for this. So she has a great sense of humor. I don't know that I needed her in this. Like, I felt like, it's okay that she's there, but she just kind of stands over there and does a couple monologues and looks sad. And I don't know that they gave her a ton to do. And I don't know if that's because that's Carrie Fisher's role now or they just didn't know what to do with it.
I think it must be a case of they didn't know exactly what to do with this, aged, general ex-princess, like, because we got Daisy Ridley, like we have all these young people. It's like it isn't that clear. What are we going to do with this Leia? Like, is she going to be with Han Solo and the Falcon, like shooting alongside him and Chewie? And they didn't. As far as the 3 movies, the 4 movies she's been in, this is probably the weakest Leia has been. But again, nothing against Carrie Fisher or the character. Just I gotta blame Kasdan and Abrams. They just didn't find enough to do with her. But she has 2 scenes, which I guess we'll get to. She has one particular moment where she says nothing that to me was the most emotional moment of the movie. To me, like a lot of people say that they were crying the entire movie. I didn't cry during this movie. I felt a lot of. I was smiling for most of this movie, but there was one moment. The closest I did come to crying is one particular moment that we'll get to. But I don't mind Carrie Fisher in this movie.
I think that the issue is not only they couldn't find what to do with her, they also ran out of time. They were trying to keep this thing as fleet as possible. Like, they were trying to keep this as close to the original runtime of the 1977 Star Wars as they could. They were purposely. I mean, you can see it. I've seen films that are soft reboots or remakes or whatever you want to call them, and they try to get back to the pacing of the original. An example fresh on my mind, and it's a totally left field thing, but when they went back and finally made Halloween 4 after Halloween 3, which if you've never seen those back to back, that's a real left turn. They purposely said, we're going to try to structure this exactly like the first one. And for the most part, the beats are almost exact. I mean, now none of the soul is the same because
Right.
John Carpenter is a genius, and the people that made Halloween 4 were hacks. But they're working on no money and an 11-day-old script. But they got what they could out of it, but they matched the beats, and I felt like so much of this film was paced almost just like A New Hope. Like it even felt that way in a lot of ways, and I thought they're really trying to stay to this. So I just sort of chalked up the Leia thing as well. They just either a lot of what she was going to do got left on the cutting room floor, or it got pushed to another chapter later on down the line that we'll see that when we see that. Again, it's nothing against Carrie Fisher. I just felt like they didn't give her anything to do, so she was just sort of there. But to me, Han Solo steals the show, and Chewie does too. Good on Peter Mayhew for coming back and doing the scenes he could do. I know he didn't do all of the action scenes with Chewbacca, but again, he knows how to do the shrugs and the looks and the head tilts, and it was fun to see Chewbacca back on the screen and not be completely wasted like he was in Revenge of the Sith.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess we should get into this. I mean, we laid through the plot. The good thing about this one is that, much like the other one, the plot isn't really that hard to understand. Matter of fact, if you've seen A New Hope, you've seen this movie. So I mean, you pretty well you kind of seen this movie before, so it doesn't really get too hard. The thing that I sort of made some notes on was the idea that the Republic is now what I guess everything's called again, but we have the Resistance. So instead of the Rebel fighters, they're the Resistance fighters, and it answered a question that I had always had after Return of the Jedi. I was like, is that it? I mean, we cut the head off the snake. Is that really it? And the answer was clearly not. And from that, we get the First Order. And I'll credit this film for something that I want to say this is probably Kasdan's doing. I may be wrong and just giving him a lot of credit for something he didn't come up with. But I'm going to credit the writers for not over-explaining what all of these things were and just kind of saying enough to get us into it and then going with it. And I liked the juxtaposition of the Republic, the Resistance, and then the people of the First Order and this Snoke fella.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, there was so many. Like I left this movie with a lot of questions. Like, so well, hold on. So who's this? Where's this? Like, what? So what happened here? Like, they don't tell. Like I said after Jedi, kept everyone's reacting like it's all over. Like a couple teddy bears take on a couple walkers, and a space station blows up. That means this entire galaxy is free of the Empire. Who knows how that happened? How every single Star Destroyer was taken down? Maybe we'll never know. But I do like this. They don't really address this, but I'm in the 30 years since the Empire was destroyed, I'm wondering why the Republic didn't literally replace the placement of the Empire. Like, why isn't there, 1,000 Republic Star Destroyers roaming the galaxy like they do? Like the First Order, they seem to have a pretty easy time doing what they do.
I lay that out as the idea of it's one thing if you take over a country and that's clearly across the world from you or whatever. This is an entire galaxy and universe here. There's no way they could possibly reach them. The idea would be that now what they've done is flip the tables. The advantages are all on the Republic side because they control the government and presumably have all the resources and things. And the First Order are like the rebels were. They've got equipment, they've got stuff, they've obviously got followers and leaders and people, but they have to do things in remote outposts and they have to hide a little bit. And that what's funny is both groups are hiding from each other. So it's kind of like I don't know, you're playing a blind game of Battleship or something. It's sort of neat the way that worked out with them. But I went with it. I love the idea that it all starts the same way the first one did. It's a droid with a map and a message and a place to go. And that's what we're going to get. And we get that great battle on Jakku at night where it's basically a night raid. And I thought, well, what a great idea to start a Star Wars movie. Most of them start in space, right? There's something going on in space, which is dark. No, we actually started at night on a planet, and we see an invasion. And we actually got to see the stormtroopers do effective work, dare I say.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing, is these stormtroopers can actually shoot, and they're pretty good, and they're kind of vicious.
Yeah, that definitely struck me, was when they said, so what do you want to do with the survivors of the village? And Kylo Ren says, well, kill them all. And they kill them all, platoon style. They just wipe out a whole village of people. It's like, oh man, they are not, the First Order's not messing around. And I got to mention the very first shot of this movie maybe might be in terms of like cool visuals, Abrams stuff. This is probably the best thing in the movie. Sadly, it's the very first thing in the movie, which was we see Jakku, and we see it looks like a shadow is being cast over the entire planet, but like it's some kind of new planet-sized ship. When in fact it's just a Star Destroyer that's not lit properly. But I did love that shot because it made me think like something much more bigger was on the horizon. But no, it's just this. Like the Empire, it's not the Empire again. It's who knows? Maybe this is their own ship.
It's the shadow of the Empire. I mean, I think that's
right.
kind of what they're drawing from is that story and some of those ideas too. And I mean, that's really what all this is based off of. I mean, let's just talk about it. Our new bad guy, Kylo Ren. We've talked about how Adam Driver played him, but as a character, he's so interesting because he's supposed to represent like millennial angst in a lot of ways, which. His whole mission is, I want to be like you, grandfather. And I'm like, you must have missed the last 2 chapters of the story, bro. Yeah. I hate to go Mark Wahlberg on him. I'm like, come on, bro. I mean, you didn't see the end where like I was redeemed and I was an old man and I was young again. I mean, that's what gets me is it's this, this sort of funny notion about, people. It's not that people don't know history, it's that they selectively remember history and pick what they want. And obviously, for whatever reason, and I'm sure it'll be told to us later on, he has picked up on, I want to be the Darth Vader of my grandfather and not Anakin Skywalker. But he's also, on the other hand, and this is the smartest thing about any character that they played here, is instead of being tempted by the dark side, he's tempted by the light, which is a completely different set of emotions. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, kind of like like in Return of the Jedi, that play of Vader, kind of sort of not the bad guy he was in Empire. Well, that's right away with Kylo Ren. He's a young guy. He's not. Who knows how he got to where he is? We're gonna find that out. But it's like whatever it is, he's just like inches away. Like you can see, he's in that one particular moment. He's like it's like a flip of a coin. He might just be ready to come back to the good side, and but he doesn't, sadly, and he is Kylo Ren. I've seen quite a bit of action movies and crime movies, all these kinds of villains, and I think Kylo Ren is the villain of the year. I love this. Like they did come up with they probably came up with the most new concepts with the Force and stuff with him, like I like the brain torture thing where it looks like, I don't know if he's like messing with a person's like psychic energy or if he's literally crushing the brain inside of the skull with the Force, which doesn't have the same visual as choking somebody, but in terms of like, it looks like it's causing a lot more pain.
Well, it's actually smarter. I can choke you to death, or I can mind meld you to death.
Yeah.
Which I attribute this to J.J. Abrams going, why couldn't he just do some of that Vulcan stuff?
Yeah, maybe.
Because I mean that's what he did with the Star Trek. Is like, why can't they do some Star Wars stuff? I mean and I'm like, what? Why not? So I mean, if you're gonna do a soft reboot, might as well. At this point.
I got to mention one nitpick I had, which was in the trailers they show Kylo Ren torturing Poe Dameron, and in the trailers they show Poe Dameron showing back up in his X-wing suit. So there's clearly some kind of a time change. So when I saw that in like Kylo Ren interrogating Poe, it's never addressed in the trailers, but I was so convinced that Kylo Ren doing that to Poe was him literally brainwashing him, and that when Poe comes back, he'd be turning his X-wing on other X-wings. But no, he's just good guy, and Kylo Ren didn't think that far ahead with he wasn't doing any Jedi mind tricks. He was just hurting him. But I don't know why. But for some reason that bugged me. It's like, really, he's not going to turn. He's just going to like I keep hoping that in the next movie it's going to be that he's going to suddenly turn on the Resistance. But no, I thought that was a wasted opportunity.
Be the mole from the inside. I mean, I think that would have been one twist too many, though, for a film again that is trying to follow a predecessor's beats. That would have just been one thing too many. Because look, he has the same thing as Han Solo. He shows up and has a cool scene in the beginning. He kind of disappears in the middle, and at the end, he shows up and has an awesome scene at the end. I mean, that's kind of what they did with that. I mean, I think Han got a little bit more in the first film, but it's not much. And so, they're totally playing this guy as that. But Kylo Ren comes off, again, from the Force powers of being able to block the bolt to, I love his lightsaber. And the fact that it's, like, screwed up and it doesn't work right. And I took that as one of two ways. I was like, either that's, and I think now, and the more I've read about it, it's the latter. But at first I thought that's somebody that, like, that's supposed to mirror the fact that he's, like, almost totally unhinged. Because anytime he gets bad news, he just, like, freaks out. And break shit, which is hilarious, and it's petulant, but it's exactly what that character should do. And then the other thought I had was that was, built by somebody that wasn't ready to build one yet and didn't know what they were doing. And I think that's what we're supposed to be told, is that he didn't really know how to do it. So he broke this and it didn't work right. So it's like almost about to fall apart, but he gives his saber like this. What it reminded me of was the Game of Thrones bit where the swords are on fire. And all that. And I was like, that's exactly what that's taking me to. And that's not a bad place to put me yet, because I thought that was a fantastic part of that season. And it matches his character, though. His saber matches his character. There's parts of him we don't understand why it's there. Like, why would you need a cross handle on a lightsaber until you see it used? And you're like, oh, that's a genius idea. Burn the guy's shoulder while you're in a lock with him.
Oh, yeah, that was badass. Like,
yeah.
With that very first teaser, when they showed the 3 beta lightsaber, the internet went nuts.
Yeah.
What is that? Why would he have that? What is that? What is the purpose of that? Colbert did a great thing of breaking that down, of why that's actually one of the coolest things ever. But yeah, that scene, that lightsaber fight where he drives it into Finn's shoulder, and it was like it's been 2 years. Finally, I know what that was for, and it was totally worth it, because that was the most painful scene in the movie. Because we've never seen that in what happens if you're what happens if you drive a lightsaber into a guy's flesh, but not entirely? It must be the most excruciating pain and burning and slicing. It was perfect for that character.
Oh yeah, and look, the way that he fights with it, he fights like a combination of the old school type of Jedi that we knew from the original trilogy, and the more graceful style that we saw in the prequel trilogy. I mean, he's a good mix of things. Everybody else is kind of a brute with the sword, because they don't know what they're doing with it for the most part. But I thought the way he played that was great, and it's just a fun character to watch, because you don't know what his deal is. Like, his mask is all screwed up. And I'm like, did they get burnt? Did it get stepped on? Did you drop it in the wash? I mean, why is that messed up? I don't know. You're not telling me. But it made him fun to look at. And when he finally pulled the mask off, I was expecting hideous, something. I thought they're gonna try to freak us out here with this. And no, it's just like the nerdiest looking dude on the planet. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you? I mean, that's the reaction I had. And I thought, well, you know what? That's really effective then, because I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to see that when he pulled his mask off, and it was effective. It's a great way to introduce a new villain to a saga that is known for its villains.
The mask bit. It's the Michael Keaton Batman thing, because Michael Keaton's not necessarily an intimidating guy. You put that mask on, it's like it makes sense. Oh, this is a guy who he's not intimidating on his own, so he needs to create something to intimidate people, and that's exactly what Kylo Ren is, because he couldn't look less threatening with that mask off. And
he looks like
on. It's like
he looks like an Uber driver without it. I mean, or that he could be your lit professor's TA or something. I mean, he does not look menacing at all by himself, but with that mask and that the whole get up and the way he does things. And look, obviously he scares people. There's a scene later where he's breaking stuff because he's pissed off, and 2 stormtroopers are coming down the hall, and they're like, never mind, we're going to go this way. Which, again, some of that Abrams humor. We also get introduced, though, to Finn. We don't know it's him for a little while here, but we mark a stormtrooper, like the defecting stormtrooper. And I was like, what a great idea, because they established in this that these are not clones anymore, that they just take these children, kind of like the African warlord stories about the children soldiers and stuff. They just take these people and train them into be soldiers. And this guy, what we find out is he was a sanitation worker and obviously wanted to be something more in the First Order. So he did all the training. He finally did good enough that he got to be in combat. And his first time in combat, he has an entire attack of conscience, and he can't do it. He can't slaughter innocent people on command, because that's not the way things should be done. And he sees one of his buddies get gunned down, and he bleeds, and he puts those 3 bloody marks across his face, and clearly so we can find him, again. But it also humanizes the character, and John Boyega was just so fun as this character because he got the biggest arc next to Rey of anybody in this thing, because he goes from scaredy cat stormtrooper just trying to escape to reluctant hero to freaking hero at the end of this thing, and a real tough dude. And I thought he was just fabulous. I loved watching this guy on the screen. He was funny, he was charismatic, and he completely sold me on the emotions of what he was going through each moment.
Oh yeah, this this first scene with Finn, like where him and Poe steal the TIE fighter, it brings up a major improvement in this series compared to the prequels, which is just energy. Like when they're in that TIE fighter taking on the turns, and they hit, and after Finn hits a turn, he just starts screaming, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" It was like, oh geez, characters are actually like excited and happy and having fun in a Star Wars movie. That did not happen at all in those prequels.
No, not at all. But again, I also attribute that to part of the generation this is written for and geared toward. The behind the scenes, we know all the secrets. There are no more magic, so just make it fun. So that's what people do nowadays. I mean, it used to be a guy scored a winning touchdown in the Super Bowl and he celebrated. Now you make a good tackle and you're dancing, halfway down the field. I mean, that's the world we live in now, and I think they just they did a good job of playing to that, because what he was doing was being the audience with us at the same time. The idea of like, isn't that awesome? Because that's what everybody in the theater is supposed to be saying too, which they were. At least I was. So I loved his energy, and I loved it too how he tried to. I mean, all the comedy that the self-deprecating comedy that he had. The whole idea of like, hey, I'm kind of a big deal. Okay, big deal. And I mean, Solo keeps throwing it back at him, and all this other stuff is like, yeah, I'm totally in the Resistance. Yeah, that'll work. And he's just going with it. It's like, come on, droid, come on. And he's trying to convince him to help. And I don't know. I liked Boyega. I liked the idea of a defecting stormtrooper though. Because he's the one that breaks Dameron out of prison on board that Star Destroyer. And he does it totally for selfish reasons. I can't fly. This guy can fly. Fly me the heck away from here. And buddy, do they ever. And that was a fantastic scene too. I've always wondered, what does it look like inside of a TIE fighter? And how does that work? And now we know. And you know what? It's really cool. It's a cool piece of tech.
Oh yeah, that was an awesome shot where they do a 360 from inside the TIE fighter. I was like, well, how that was a great shot. I was like, well, how like that was like puzzling to me. It's like, well, how they do that? Like, how like because it looked like they were in a tiny space, yet we were doing a 360 around the guys inside of a cockpit of a ship. I've never seen that before.
It was a great shot, and they have a great escape. It's a lot of fun, and they end up going right back to where they started from. It's just, of course, that's not where Finn wants to go at all. But they crash land, and then now I'll ask you this: did you think Poe was dead? Because I was like, no, he just went off somewhere else. Clearly, I didn't believe for a minute he was dead.
Oh, the trailers kind of ruined that, because like, well, I know he shows up in his X-wing outfit at some point, so he's clearly not dead.
Yeah, so I was like, this guy's coming back, but we got to get this guy on his journey for a little while, and he's stripping off the suit, and he's walking through the desert alone, and he's in a desert on a horse with no name, and he's looking for water and all this stuff, and while he's stumbling toward the wretched hive of scum and villainy, we meet our other new character, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this now: I absolutely love the character of Rey, and it's not because she's just a cute girl and all this stuff. I thought this was such a modern take on the hero, the reluctant hero, or the hero with unknown skills and things. Because, and I've seen this movie knocked for this too in a lot of different reviews, and it amazes me people can't get the idea of, what, we've done the hero's journey a million times where they take 10 years to figure out what to do. Wouldn't it be neat to see somebody that picked up the gun and was like, holy cow, I'm really good at this? Because that actually happens in real life, by the way. Like, people just do stuff and they're like, oh, wow, I'm really good at math. I didn't know that. And it just happened. And I love that. And I wrote in my notes, like, this girl has skills. And I love the way she's a scavenger. She can fend for herself. She's living in an old burnout AT-AT, which was awesome. I mean, I thought that was cool, and she totally doesn't need anybody to take care of her. I mean, every time she's running, or Finn's trying to run away from people looking for BB-8 or whatever, he's grabbing her by the hand, and she's like, "Let me go! I don't need you to drag me along." I thought this character was fantastic, and Daisy Ridley again played it perfectly. For somebody, again, I don't know from anything, and from what I understand, hasn't done a ton else of work. Really, really played vulnerable, but quick-witted and smart, and I just so jumped into it with both feet. I thought she was fabulous every time she was on the screen.
Oh yeah, she really is great. I don't know what I was expecting from this character. Like, I think maybe a lot of people were thinking, oh, and like here's another. This is episode 4 again. Here is our Princess Leia stand-in. It's like, no, not really. It's way more closer. This is the Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, she's more like I'll tell you what she is. She's Katniss Everdeen in Star Wars.
Sure,
that's what she is. I mean, I actually sort of expected that halfway going into this. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna have a female character in a movie, made in 2015 that's not awesome at everything, because that's what we're at now with female characters in action movies. They're incredible at everything. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I was like, I'm surprised she didn't have a bow. I'm like, I guess they couldn't figure out a way to write that in, so they gave her the stick, to which has no, like, it's got all these gadgets on it, and all she does is wail people with it. I don't know what that, pole vaulting stick is for, but maybe we'll see in another episode. But she's great with it, and she's smart. And the thing, and it's also the thing too, and this is the question I had for you: who do you think she belongs to, family-wise? Because there's a lot of theory out there, but I'm like, that is Skywalker blood if I've ever seen it on the screen. And if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong on that episode, but I think that's exactly who she is.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like this is not hinted at in the movie specifically, but I think very much we're gonna find out that Luke Skywalker left her on that planet for whatever reason. Maybe the same reason that Luke himself was taken to Tatooine to keep her safe. Whatever it is, I think we're gonna find out that her last name is Skywalker.
Well, yeah, that, and I mean the other things too, and this is nods to the prequels. Remember, like, if you can get away from the bad performance of it and everything, how Anakin was just good at everything and he didn't really know how. You could write that off as, instead of midichlorians, as somebody who has the Force so strong with them they don't even know how good they are. I mean, he was an amazing pilot for a young kid. She's an amazing pilot for a young lady, and she even says she gets in the Millennium Falcon and does stuff in it that she's like, how did I do that? I don't even know what I was doing, but she's just great at it. And I'm like, it's so cool to see somebody who has no idea how good they really are, and then they just get out there and blow it away. I mean, that's so rare to find these days. I likened it, and this is a different, set of talent, but I likened it the first time I saw Kelly Clarkson on the original American Idol. I thought that voice is coming out of that girl who works at the CBS. I'm like, that is incredible. And she didn't even realize how good she was. And, and now, of course, she's a major pop star and all this kind of stuff and has an incredible set of pipes, and has honed it through the years. And I think that's the thing to see, is that I'm looking forward to watching her get even better at this, because she was awesome without any training. Imagine what Rey's going to be like down the road. I mean, God, it's going to amp it up. But I thought she was cool. And I'll tell you now, the way, the whole joke about how they wind up in the Millennium Falcon is great. But the coolest thing for me, and this is a J.J. Abrams thing again, he loves to nitpick and pull things from like 80s movies that he grew up with and just sort of drop them in his films from time to time. And there's a total Top Gun moment in this movie when the gun gets stuck in one position and she does the I'm going to hit the brakes and he'll fly right by move, essentially, and Finn blows the TIE fighter away. And I was like, that is so Top Gun. That is awesome. She even does the throttle and the stick move, which, why would that even work the same way in a spaceship? But I was like, that is, and I maybe I'm reading more into it than it is, but I feel like that's the kind of thing J.J. Abrams would throw in there. And I'm like, and then I did the math on it. I said, that actress wasn't even born when that movie was made, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how old that reference is. But for people like me that have seen Top Gun a lot and know that reaches out, it's just another piece of nostalgia. Like I said, this movie could have been called The Nostalgia Awakens, because this movie is just full of it. And that was another moment of it. And it was fantastic. Their escape in the Millennium Falcon is fantastic. And great action scene.
Oh yeah, it is. And my favorite part of that was again with the nostalgia is I got a couple like real jolts of nostalgia in terms of like the side stuff, the like certain props. And when Finn jumps into the gunner seat and the red and yellow
the old gunner sight from the 70s shows up.
Oh yeah, when that was like, oh man, that's so cool. And I loved it when he's like, when he shoots somebody, he says, I'm getting pretty good at this. And like, what's he doing? He's getting cocky. He just doesn't have Han Solo to tell him he's being cocky in the gunner seat. I thought that
and the idea is when he first gets in it, the controls are so harsh, like he's just slinging himself around. He doesn't even realize what he's doing. And I'm like, well, you know, that would be like if you took a modern, you know, fighter pilot and you stuck them in an old B-52 gunner seat. It'd take them a second to figure out what they were doing, because they have to crank it and turn it. I mean, nothing's automatic anymore. It's all manual. But I thought that was cool too, that they left that in. That, like, you know, nobody had bothered to upgrade the Millennium Falcon ever. Yeah. It's like your uncle's junker car that, like, for some reason nobody ever washes or ever does anything to. You've never changed the oil in it, and you're kind of afraid to, because if you do, you're afraid it'll fall apart. You know, that is the Millennium Falcon here, and they waste no time getting us back to Han and Chewie. Like when they were being captured there. And again, I knew no spoilers of this. I was like, this has got to be Han and Chewie, because where's that scene of them running onto the Falcon going, I'm home? I thought that would have been them, you know, from the trailer, them doing that big chase that we just saw. And that's another thing, too. J.J. Abrams took all the space battles and put them on, like, from a land view, which is a neat way of doing it. Instead of being in the cockpit so much and all that stuff, it's like you're watching it from the ground. It's a really cool way of doing it.
It's really cool in that first trailer when you see the Falcon swooping out, swooping upside down and on the sand blowing up like that. It was like, man, I've never seen the Millennium Falcon do stuff like this. And good time to point out that the CG I thought actually was it was very well done. It was on par with. I thought that the effects weren't quite as mind blowing as maybe they were in Empire Strikes Back and the asteroid fight, but I thought that the effects in this movie, they were very good.
They're good. The worst effects are when they try to create creatures with CGI, like the monsters that are crawling around on Han and Chewie's ship, and some of that stuff is kind of cheesy. It's a little Howard
felt like
the
a
Duck.
different movie.
Yeah, it felt like Howard the Duck or something for like 5 minutes. So I don't know if that's what that's a nod to or not, but it felt like that. But all the fighting sequences and stuff, it's fantastic. It's as well done as anything that they've put together. And again, I put a lot of it, you know, it reminded me a lot of the aerial sequences in Top Gun and the way Tony Scott and his cinematographers were able to capture the frenetic pace of that. It felt like that this time, but again, the point of view was different because you're watching it from the ground up instead of from the sky down, which makes it, you know, completely cool. But you know, we get Han and Chewie back. We've talked a lot about Han and Chewie and the Falcon and all that stuff. And the whole bit here is that they've got to get this droid. They finally convinced it to tell them, you know, I've got something that's very important. I've got to get it back to the Resistance. And they you know, Han does the whole bit about, well, I don't know if I want to go back to see the old lady and all this. And you kind of wonder what's going on. And it's in the middle of all of that we meet Snoke and we get on the ship with Kylo Ren and we find out he's Han and Leia's son. And how did you like how that was revealed, that it was a third party telling us that big of a piece of information?
Yeah, like I think that might have been something I had spoiled for me, or so there was speculation that, you know, one of these characters in the movie is going to be one of the old characters' kids. And when they said, so I wasn't that surprised when they said it's Han Solo's kid. I was surprised that they really didn't make a huge deal out of it. Like, that's something you expect that's going to be the Empire moment. Like the last, like, you're going to find out at that catwalk scene that Han Solo is his son, is his father. But it didn't bother me. I was always worried. It's like, is that really, like, we got to keep making the universe smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, of course, Anakin has to build R2. Oh, the new villain of this movie has to be Han Solo's son. But first, I think it worked for me.
It worked fine for me too, because it let me know that while this is going to involve the same set of families and people we've known, that's not what we want you to pay attention to. We want you to pay attention to all this other stuff. We're just going to drop that information on you. So now that you've had that out of the way, you can pay attention to the way the rest of this goes. And I thought that was smart and went really well. And I love how Kylo Ren tries to play it off like he means nothing to me. But then later on, you see he's like sitting there and he's, weeping almost because he's, please let me get away from, the good and let me be evil. And it's just a different kind of prayer. Like we said, he's pulled toward the light versus pulled toward the darkness, which is a complete flip of what we've ever seen. Like it's always been about somebody trying to stave off the evil inside of him. Well, in this case, this guy just went for the evil and now he's trying to push away the good. He knows better, but yet he's willfully going against it. And I thought that was a neat play for the whole thing. Now, the one thing I will knock this for unoriginality is this whole Star Killer base business here. Okay,
here we go.
So I had seen the poster of this, and I was like, they built the Death Star gun in the middle of a planet. That seems kind of dangerous for the planet, Like I became Neil deGrasse Tyson for like 5 seconds. I'm like, wouldn't that really damage your own self? Oh, stop! It's a movie, So and I was like, oh no, it's just a movie. And I thought, well, I guess they decided we've got new characters. We're killing off a beloved old character. Maybe we shouldn't throw too much new on everybody this first time. So let's just do the Death Star 3.0, and it'll work about as effectively as the other ones did. I was like, and I don't even know. They destroyed something. Did they destroy like politicians? I don't even know what they blew up in the end, and nobody bothers to cry over any of them. So apparently nobody gives a damn.
Yeah, again with the Death Star, I don't mind them making another a Death Star. It's a nice quick way for the First Order to try and take over. What I do mind is it seems like it's never been easier to destroy the most destructive force in the universe. No deflector shield. No coverings over any of the ports that these X-wings fly right through. It's like they really didn't think
it's like
of that base through.
It's like they built the defense that had already been beat before and just figured everybody on the other side would have forgotten it. And then the old people were like, no, remember we just blow the shields up. Oh, yeah, that's right. And it's like, oh. Yeah. I'm like, well, that's like playing video games with the cheat code. I mean, the first time. I mean, sure, it's fun, but but again, if they're gonna not do anything about it, well, okay, and it's arbitrary to the story. It completely is, because I don't even think it matters. We just have to have something to have a big action scene to build around, and it might as well have been called plot device based.
Sure.
Because it's completely useless and MacGuffin based part 3, whatever. It was terrible. But the thing is the tech behind it seems kind of neat. It's like we're going to drain a sun and shoot all of its energy to blow up a whole series of planets and moons and create another sun on the other side of the galaxy. And I'm like, man, that seems like that's even worse than like drive-by shooting a planet. Like that's pretty. Yeah. I mean, they like did that from way away. I was like, wow, it's like a Hail Mary Death Star all of a sudden. So, which was kind of weird. So, I'm like, how do you target that? I mean, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, they didn't really nail down that thing. But the Star Killer thing is kind of like this. I do love the visual of this thing, like harnessing the power of a star. That's pretty epic. It makes me think of like old school like Marvel Comics cosmic stuff, like Galactus or like Ego, the guy who is a planet that is alive or something. And I was thinking that like this idea of this weapon that destroys multiple planets at once is enough that they could have made a whole movie about that, and they kind of just throw it in there like this out of nowhere in the middle of the movie. It's like it fires a shot. It's like, well, what's it doing? And then when the shots spread out, that I thought that was cool. It's like, whoa, what's this now? And then it just, each planet it hits, like it's not even like it just turns it to ash like instantly, like Krypton blowing up.
I mean, yeah, it just completely vaporizes it all. Like I'll tell you the thing that it struck me of, and this is going to seem weird. If you've ever seen the old 1986 Transformers movie, the animated one or whatever, there's like the Galactus type eating planet source thing that's voiced by Orson Welles in
Unicron.
Unicron, there we go. Thank you. It reminded me of like kind of like Unicron if it sort of worked in reverse. Unicron ate everything, but then this thing just kind of shoots everything, and so again, it's the base of convenience, so which also will give rise to the cliffs of convenience and the ravine of convenience later that we'll talk about. It's a total plot contrivance, but we have to have something for them to do, and okay, that's fine. I even like the way that the whole town hall meeting around the big sphere of holograms is totally undercut by Harrison Ford going hadn't we done this twice before? Let's just go blow the shield up and we'll blow it up. And Ren's yeah, we'll find a way. He's yeah, I like this guy. We'll just make the shit up as we go along. You know, and because that's pretty much what they do. So, and they totally just wing it. So.
They do save it. When they were basically, it was the exact same scene out of A New Hope. It's I felt really they're doing it. But when Han Solo said it, how do we blow it up? There's always a way to blow it up. Thankfully someone said it.
I just wanted Admiral Akbar to go, be careful, there might be a trap. I wanted him to say that at least once, but I guess that would have been too much fan service at that point. Yeah. So that's probably Family Guy probably ruined that for everyone. So the fact that couldn't happen again. But as that's going, before we even get to the plan about that, we meet the Star Killer base, we see how that's going down, and we meet the new cantina scene here, and we get this odd character Maz, who's this sort of ancient alien fortune teller. I don't know what she is, but she's got a piece of tech that Rey gets a hold of. It's Luke Skywalker's lightsaber that he lost when Darth Vader cut off his hand on Bespin. Now, remind me of this, Kurt, because it's been a while since I've seen The Empire Strikes Back. But if I'm not mistaken, that was a city in the clouds, right?
Yeah.
And Luke got his hand cut off over an air shaft. Where did she find that? And I know that it's played off a long story for another day. I'm bullshit, tell me that now. How did you find that? Was it laying around? Somebody come across it one day? Was it floating in space and it hit a space shuttle? How did you get that?
Yeah, I gotta say that did not occur to me until right now. It's it's probably Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from the last movie. Well, it was green last time. It's
yep.
Yeah. So what? So he can't, because they say it was his father's before him. Oh, so this is that old school lightsaber that Kenobi showed him, and it isn't very clear exactly how they got that. Some Bespin janitor at the very bottom of that.
Well, if we're to understand it, this is the one Anakin Skywalker slaughtered younglings with, fought Obi-Wan Kenobi for an hour on a lava planet with, and got cut away from before Kenobi stole it from him, or took it from him, and then, went off and hid it for 30 years before he gave it to Luke. And now it's been another 30 years. So this thing's at least 70 years old at this point. This is an old thing, but now it's also mystical. It's like the Ark of the Covenant or something. You touch it, and instead of dying, you have visions. And Rey has all of these hurried flashbacks. And on the second watch, I caught it because I was listening for it, of all the voices that they loop in there. They loop in Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor and Yoda, and there's all these people talking to her about destiny and lineage and all this stuff, and we see that scene that was in the trailer of the Luke's hand on top of the R2-D2 where he's mind melding with it or whatever. I don't know what that is, but she's seeing there's all these visions happening to her, and then she wakes up and she freaks out about it. And that part of it kind of took me out for a minute, because I thought at no time in Star Warsdom have we ever seen an item do that, or the Force have that kind of an effect on someone. So I'm wondering, are they introducing something new with the Force there, or what?
Well, I think that if anything, that's Abrams just changing up the film grammar of this series, because that definitely stood out. When all of a sudden we cut into middle of a dream scene, it almost looked like Rey was in the middle of the Bespin hallway where Darth Vader pops in. If I could put a screenshot of the two together, that would make more sense. But it was really weird. I kind of felt cheated when we see Luke Skywalker. That's the shot from the trailer, and realize that's the coolest thing you're going to see Luke Skywalker do, is show his hand a little bit. Because when the epic shot from the trailer with Kylo Ren in the rain with his guys behind him and his lightsaber out, I thought, oh, here we go, epic lightsaber fight. Oh, it's Luke. Here we go. And they cut to the dream's over. And I was really excited to see that play out. Maybe we'll see that in another movie, though.
That's what I'm wondering. If that's supposed to be when Ren turned on the the Jedi Academy that Luke started and cut it all to pieces, or what? If that's when he and his men did that, and notice all his men too. Not all of them have lightsabers. Some of them just have guns and battle axes and all. Like they're a ragtag kind of group. So I don't know. Yeah, that was one of those that just left me with a whole lot of questions. And I'm like, clearly that's what that scene's supposed to do, is just make you go, ooh, look at all this. Maybe we'll explain it. Maybe we won't. We have 25 movies to make. We're Disney, So I mean, that's what that felt like. But I don't know. It's the only scene like that in the movie, so it's weird. Because that's the thing that I kept waiting for him to do every time Kylo Ren is doing his Force Mind thing on people, is that we would see a collage of what he's seeing, and we never get that. And maybe that's why they didn't, because they knew they were going to play this way. But I kept waiting for that. But the attack goes down, and it's a cool attack. I mean, you've got all these stormtroopers coming in, and there's all this stuff going down. They're chasing the BB-8 still, and Kylo Ren's there, and then over the water, one of the coolest shots are the X-Wings coming over the water and the surf they're kicking up as they're whizzing by and getting ready to just lay the hammer down on everybody. And that's when Poe returns too. And not only is he a great pilot, he's an amazing shot. Going about Mach 2, he's knocking down single soldiers standing next to people. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was something else. That shot in the trailer, that was the shot that really got me. Never mind the Millennium Falcon. When they cut to that shot of like three X-Wings opening their S-foils above water, I just thought that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. That really got me.
It is cool. I mean, it's fantastic, and the battle is great there, but it's quick. That's the thing. It doesn't last very long. I mean, we get a little bit though of Finn, because he's got the lightsaber at that point, and I love the first time he gets it, he impales somebody with it. And, like, you see them dying on it and just cracks their armor around it. I was like, that was pretty... That's one thing I'll say about it. This movie is incredibly violent. Like, there's a lot of blood and a lot of people getting killed. Like, this is a violent Star Wars movie.
It is, but in a cool way. Like, it never went beyond the pale, but it was violent in that way of, like, in A New Hope, when Obi-Wan takes, like, hacks those guys to pieces in the cantina.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was pretty... And I did love. I love how they did make a big deal. Like, they made the lightsaber a big deal. Like, when he switches that on, it felt like it meant something. It wasn't just like in the prequels where every other guy just has a lightsaber. Like, they get them cut in half, whatever. Here's another one.
Well, yeah, and what's great is the stormtrooper that pulls out the stick that apparently can't be cut by the lightsaber and starts going at him, and you can tell clearly Finn doesn't know what to do with this thing. Like, he really only knows how to stab and hack people that aren't looking, but he doesn't know how to fight anybody that knows what they're doing with it. And that was great, and the fact that somebody else has to shoot that guy, and save him. I think it's Han that does that was great. I mean, I thought that we can only have one character that's great at everything the first time they touch it, and it ain't going to be Finn. Right. He's going to dive in head first, but he may get in over his skis a few times, as we'll see. So
sure,
the best part, though, is when Kylo Ren catches up to Rey, because she tries to shoot him, and he's able to sort of force hold her and threaten her a little bit, and then he realizes, I don't need the robot, I'll just drag it out of you. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting plan, but maybe you should go ahead and get the robot too, just in case you can't. But I love the fact that, again, his character is the hubris of his character is so that he's like, I don't need the stupid droid. I can just drag it out of this girl, because he doesn't think she's that big a deal at this point. And, he goes off with her. We see Han staring at him, and he has that moment with Leia later about it. I mean, it's a big moment to see him get away. And this is the moment in the middle of the original Star Wars where everything seems to be going okay, but then again it's really not. And our characters are lost, we don't know what we're doing, and we're trying to come up with an attack plan. And the neatest bit comes here next, though, is when Ren tries to drag through her mind, and you see that Rey's able not only to fight him off, but she's able to turn the tables on him and go, you're scared. And like pushing back, and you can tell that just freaks him out completely.
It is, and it was a great. I love the bit where he takes the helmet off, and it looks like, and he slams it into some sand, and it looks like the helmet weighs like 2 tons with how fast that came down. And I love their dialogue talking about how you'll never be as powerful as Darth Vader. Like, I like that, but it has. I think the weirdest moment in the movie is where he's trying. Kylo Ren's doing the brain torture thing, and it's not working. And then I thought the scene got pretty odd, because I don't know how long it was, but it felt like a whole minute where we're just looking at Adam Driver holding his hand in front of Daisy Ridley's face without anyone talking. If,
Yeah, if you
and-
were to
and
watch
nothing-
this, if you were to watch this without the sound on, you would think, is there a joke? Like, what's
Yeah.
supposed to be happening here? It is extraordinarily long of them gazing at each other for reasons. Like, I guess we're supposed to see that that's the mental push and pull, but since there's no visual to go with it, and this movie is so built on visuals, like, I didn't see any waves going, like some, wavy air or something going back and forth between them. Something would have keyed it off, because I'm with you, that went on a little bit longer than it needed to.
Yeah, like something. Have him say something, maybe, or even some less than force lightning crackle or something. But it's like, or just cut it shorter, something. Abrams.
Yeah, that needed to be trimmed just a little bit on that. But I like that what we're getting clued into here is that he realizes, ooh, she's strong with the Force and doesn't know it yet. And she slowly begins to figure out, wait a minute, maybe I can do this whole power of suggestion thing to people too. And that's when she lays it on the Daniel Craig Stormtrooper. Yeah. And that plays out. That is a great scene, not only of comedy, but just of somebody sort of coming into their own. Like, she's like, you're going to let me go and leave your gun. So, it's like, oh yeah, I might need that too. Yes, and here it is. And I love her escape is because, and this is the twist on it is instead of being the damsel in distress waiting for people to come get her, she does the Buffy thing and just creates her own escape. Which, being a fan of that, I'm watching this going like, this is a total Buffy thing. Like this, that's what these modern female heroines can go back to. People is that, and I love seeing that played out again and again and again. I mean, it's an archetype I like, and so I'm watching this like I'm watching Buffy get out of a trap. I mean, I was down with it. I thought it was fun.
Oh yeah, it is fantastic. It's the total twist on Leia being in prison. It's like Leia. It would have been. I bet you Lucas was watching this movie. Apparently, he didn't care for the movie, but he deep down inside, he was watching a couple things like, "Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of someone using the Force to stop a laser bolt? Why didn't I think of Leia?"
Well, Kurt, that's because we're too busy worrying about minutia, like robots that get cut down like butter. Also, I'm running the business over here, kid. So Lucas is sitting on his piles of billions that he got for this, going, I really don't care what anyone thinks anymore. So laughing at he can not like the movie all the way to the bank. So whatever. But yeah, I mean her escape is neat. I love you've got Ren and Finn and Han and Chewie running around looking for her, and then they kind of bump into her, all of a sudden, and the fact that Chewie tells her that this was all Finn's idea, and like she just grabs him and like they're totally bonded at that moment. And I'm like, you know what, and that's what I keep saying, these two had such great chemistry together, and it reminded me so much of that Titanic chemistry, but not in the romantic way. Like the thing that sold me on the Titanic romance wasn't the romance, it was the fact that Leo and Kate looked like they would actually be friends. And the funny part is to realize in life they actually are friends, and they got on so well that they built a friendship off of this. You can tell when actors can fake it well enough, like they hate each other, but they really can make it work, that there's that kind of chemistry. And then you can tell people that really get along and seem to like each other and are having fun as characters. And these two seem to really get that. And it just sort of bonded them in a way that we hadn't had before. Like, these two as a tag team are going to be really neat to watch together when they get back together in the next film or whenever it is. But that gets them away. We get through the plan of attack, which is the plan of convenience, as I've said, and we've done this before. Well, we'll do it all again and again and again. And we get all that, and we get the thing here. And I love the fact that it's Chewie's idea is actually the better one on how to blow up the whatever the hole of convenience that they've got to blow up to knock the Star Killer out, whatever it is. I don't remember what they called it. A motivator, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I love that it's like a big power plant that they got to blow up, right? And we get the showdown of Han Solo and Kylo Ren. And I will say I was so into the movie at this point that I did not see it coming. And I should have totally seen it coming. Because second time around, I'm like, God, I must have been totally over the moon about this movie to not see what was about to happen to him right there. Because he walked into it. I mean, as much as Ben dropping his lightsaber for Darth Vader, this is the same thing.
Yeah, this scene, even though I had it spoiled for me months ago by a random YouTube commenter who said that that he said he saw it in some kind of a leak script. Oh yeah, Kylo Ren kills Han Solo, and I hope that guy dies of cancer of the eyes. But even still, that scene where when Han, first of all, when Han and Chewie split up, for some reason it felt like, why does this seem like I've never seen these two guys split up on purpose for? That tells me, oh, here we go, this is it. And when he said, let's split up, I that's when my heart did start to beat. Even though, like, literally, I know it's coming, but I'm like, my heart just started to beat so much. And when he calls out to him, and it is such a great scene because he calls out to his name. His real name turns out is Ben, and Kylo Ren stops, and that to me that to me was one of the more emotional moments too, because Han and Leia had a kid. And they named him after that kindly old Jedi who saved them on the Death Star, and that really got to me in the heart. And this whole scene, my heart is just pounding the entire time. And when on the catwalk, Han Solo doesn't have his gun out, and every step he took closer to Kylo Ren, like the audience is laughing, maybe even some whispering throughout the whole movie, but at this time in the theater, you can hear a pin drop, not a single sound, because I think the audience can kind of sense it too. And when he's trying to, and Han's trying to convince his son to go back to them, it's like, hey, maybe it worked with Vader, maybe it'll work again. I guess not. And really
I love what he says to him. Is like, help me make this final journey. I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. And everything we've seen from the guy going up to that was, oh, he's ready to go back to the light. And what he's actually doing is, I'm going to have to kill you to prove to, the powers that be or whatever, that I'm as bad as I want to be. And that's what he's wanting help with. That was twisted, and but it was well done. It's Adam Driver's best scene.
Oh yeah. And like, what really struck me was that so much of that scene played with no music. And it's one of the few big Star Wars moments I can think of where there was no music for a big part of it. Like just like Abrams really trying to just like he had me in that moment. And yeah, my heart just kept pounding faster and faster and faster. And then the music finally kicks in. Han gets closer, and Kylo takes out his lightsaber. You think he's gonna like put it away, and the music like the kind of fake. The music kind of like is building up with this really low sound, and then the sun fades away, and it's just the glow of red light from beneath them. And Kylo switches it on and pierces Han's chest, and Kylo says, "Thank you." He's like, "No, one less father to worry about in the galaxy." And in his dying breaths, Han like touches his son's face and then falls into the abyss beneath him. And it is, even though I knew exactly that it was coming in that scene, it was so powerful to me. It's even more heartbreaking than when Obi-Wan died, because there wasn't that smirk that Obi-Wan has that's like, well, it ain't over till it's over sort of thing. It's just, it's over. Han Solo is dead, and he looked like he wasn't ready to die. He was ready to keep, he was in that moment, he thought, I'm going to get my son back. And instead his son actually kills him. And it was just, it was really tough to watch, and easily the best scene in this film. And I've seen a lot of movies this year, even if Star Wars isn't on my, top 5 of the year, this is the most powerful scene of the year for me. Just being a Star Wars fan, it's just amazing.
Oh, and like I said, I was such a mark for it. I didn't see it coming, and when it happened, like, I let out an audible gasp. Like, I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, of course it would have to be like that. And then I didn't even realize it was happening. I felt a tear run down my cheek, and I thought, oh my goodness, this film has totally gotten to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I am totally in bed with this thing now. Like, I was like, well, clearly I'm there. There's no way I'm going to trash this at all. And I wasn't sitting there with my knives out anyway. Like, at some point, early into it, actually, I just sort of fell into it and was like, man, this is awesome not to know what's coming, and have to just watch it and absorb it. But this moment was so poignant and powerful. And the way he dies, like you say, it's different than Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi's like, I already told you I'd be more powerful if you strike me down, so I'm going to show you what that is. But Han Solo's gone. Like, he got no mama, no papa, no force, none of that stuff. He just was a guy that believed after all of his experiences, and he was brave to the end. and he made an ultimate sacrifice. And I mean, you see, and the thing is you see Rey and Finn react to it. They've only known him for a short time, but they know who Han Solo is. And that's the neat juxtaposition of that is she is a junker on a nothing planet. He is a lifelong stormtrooper, and they both know who Han Solo is. You know, and so they saw their hero cut down in front of them. And I love Chewie's reaction is he straight up blasts that dude. Like, he gets a good shot, and I thought that was awesome. Like, yes, bust a cap in him, please. And that was fantastic. So,
yeah, it was as much as Finn and Rey's reaction was moving. It was the reaction of the two characters that we really know that really got me. When Chewie screamed, that got me. Well, I'll tell you what really got me. Like when I said the closest I came to tears in this movie, like earlier before this, like before Han Solo leaves Leia. They have that great scene where it's like, I'm going to try to get her son back. And the Leia theme plays for like the first time in the movie. And it's a gorgeous moment. They embrace. It's so beautiful. It's beautiful is what it is. And when Han Solo dies and we cut to Leia alone on the other planet, she can sense it. It's when Obi-Wan senses that the Death Star blew up. It's the same thing. And that's the moment that got to me the most. And also later, it's like maybe 10 minutes later, but when we see Chewie alone, like just alone in the base with no one around him, just kind of like holding his head depressed, like it sounds like that's not right. Why it felt wrong, but like it was great for the movie, but just like this is the saddest thing I've ever seen. Chewbacca is the one guy who could understand what he says is gone. It was just like Han Solo's gone, and Star Wars it is never going to be the same.
I felt like Kylo Ren made his ultimate decision when he saw the sun go out once and for all, and when he realized, okay, now we have the advantage, is when he decided to whack Pops.
Yeah, almost as though he was like he was never planning on going back. Like he's just that he might just be that messed up and that much of a that definitely came up as. I mean, he kind of entered a Joffrey level of evil and
good call.
And being, you can't, I mean, in all of cinema, I don't think there's ever been a more despicable character. This is like Adam Driver will forever be known as the guy who killed Han Solo. And hopefully he'll do something else that'll help to shed that image a bit. But like, no, like this is one of those guys like what's his name? Like Gleason in Jack Gleason in like people are going to see this guy on the street.
Well, it's like Draco Malfoy. That poor kid, has had to play a lot of other things to not be that guy, So, I mean, yeah, it's look, you have these big cinematic moments, and you have to have actors that can pull it off. The thing I've always loved about Jack Gleason when he played Joffrey was he just ate all of it up. He's just like, yeah, sure. And you know what? Hux is like if Phasma is Brienne's great whatever granddaughter, then Hux comes from Joffrey's line somewhere along the way. He has got some of that in him for sure. You just can't miss it. So he's Lannister all the way. So
sure.
But yeah, no, Ren is totally evil at this moment, and even punctuated by the fact that our two heroines here, Finn and Rey, are trying to escape, and he confronts them in the woods like, no, we're not done. And like he pounds himself to show, look, I'm even hurt, and I'm going to take you on, And you get my favorite Finn moment in the film is he picks up that saber and is like, let's go, and he just jumps headlong into it, and it's a great fight. And I'll be honest with you, I thought he was dead. I thought the way he got cut up, I was like, people don't live through that. Like, that was pretty vicious.
Yeah, when he got sliced up the back, I did think, it's like, oh my God, like I've seen this happen on Game of Thrones. They bleed out from their spine and they're dead. But that lightsaber duel, it is fantastic. What I loved is, I don't know if it's Abrams or if it's just an overall thing, but they're going to decide from now on that lightsaber duels are not going to, as much as I like the prequel, I actually really like those prequel lightsaber fights. They're so fast. And
they're fun.
And so
yeah.
forth. They are. But in this movie, that go back to the original trilogy, like those lightsabers have some weight to them somehow. And again, like I said, one of my most badass moment in the movie for me was when he turns the three-bladed lightsaber. All he's got to do is turn it around and drive it into his shoulder, and finally make sense of why you'd have two mini lightsabers on the handle. But that was pretty sick.
Oh, it was totally sick. And, again, we think he's gone. And what has happened is the Luke lightsaber's been knocked into the snow, so we get that little Hoth moment again. And Ren's trying to call it to him because he's like, that's mine. And that's what he's going to use to kill Rey with. And what we realize when it whizzes by him is, no, she's figured out, oh, I can do that too, homeboy. And she grabs it, and I wrote in my notes the second time I've seen this, like, Rey gets the saber and uses the Force in it like a boss.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love that she's able to go toe-to-toe with him. She's not as good, but the ferocity that she attacks with is similar. It's not quite the same level, but it's similar to the way Luke attacks Vader, and that the back half of their fight at the Return of the Jedi that we just totally geeked out on when we talked about in that podcast. It's that same kind of just, I am so pissed right now. It's Obi-Wan going after Darth Maul. It's all of that, and I thought it was a great fight. And I love how he's got her hanging over the cliff too, and it's like, you need a teacher. And that's when she's like, "Oh yeah, I can use the Force. I forgot, for a minute." And then she totally bounces it against him, and I love how she takes him down. I thought she killed him too, man. I was like, she cut off his arm and his head. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was shocking. Of all the violence in this movie, that was like the one bit where it's like, really, they really toned that down, because it really looked like she like just sliced into half of his face. But when you look at it, it's like there's just a scar like running across his nose. And like, don't these things burn through steel?
I know.
Like,
yeah.
Shouldn't it, like his face, like,
he got a Tyrion Lannister scar out of it.
Big time. That's exactly what jumped to mind.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm like, didn't these things didn't Qui-Gon Jinn use one of these to blow open a door on a ship once? I guess it's all in how you handle it, man. It's like Eric Clapton said, it's in the way that you use it. And so, but I mean, yeah, she totally cuts him up. But then we do get what I call the ravine of convenience. It splits them apart. I'm like, wait a minute, Jedi can like float, jump over there and kill him.
Yeah.
But no, she's going to run back to the Falcon and take care of her friend, and that. But that's great though. Chewie shows up to pick them up. And that was a great moment for me because Chewie's just kind of been along for the ride, all this stuff, like he always is, right? But Han's gone now, and Chewie's like, no, I need to take care of these people too. These are my friends now too. And I that was a cool moment for me. I was like, we don't talk about Chewie a lot because he is just the sidekick in a lot of these things, but he's a good loyal dude to have around.
Oh yeah, they really made him a good character. And one thing I didn't touch on was when they're talking about you're Han Solo, the legendary thing. And it's like, so like Han Solo is a legend, but somehow the 7-foot-tall wolf ape didn't make it into the legend.
Which is probably why he's like, I don't know, kind of.
Yeah. Like you keep wanting him to say, oh, and you're Chewbacca the Wookiee. Like they don't ever like. I think Han's the only guy who says his name. Maybe.
Hey, look,
maybe Leia.
Man, it's a total speciesism thing. All right, the Wookiees get no respect. They've been fighting this war for how long? Yoda used these cats. Yeah. All right, they got screwed out of the Return of the Jedi battle. The Wookiees get no love. All right, so I mean they're the Rodney Dangerfield of the Star Wars universe. It's clear, but no, I love how he picks them up, and it's kind of a reverse because at one point he gets shot earlier, which we've never seen happen before, and Finn has good comedy trying to patch him up, and then he goes in reverse with it. Rey takes the wheel and he goes back there to patch him up. And I thought that's pretty cool. And, of course, the Star Killer base goes kablooey, as we knew it would. Not before, though, Hux gets off of there because Hux goes running to Andy Serkis, the projection, which, I thought that was actually Snoke, like he was this giant thing,
Me too.
And then I was like, oh, it's just a projection. Watch him be like a foot tall, or something. But which is another Buffy fun. But anyway, that would be my luck. But he's like, yeah, go ahead and get Kylo Ren and come on, it's time to complete his training. And I'm like, that feels a whole lot like the Emperor going and picking up what's left of Anakin Skywalker on the Mustafar. So like, I feel like they're trying to hit that beat again. And I thought, well, okay, that's the thing though. Is, everybody's like, this is going to erase the prequels, and I'm like, no, not really. It's just going to reference them in the only cool things they had in them.
Oh, yeah.
Those 4 moments we've now touched on. You know,
It's a
and
best of the prequels. So
exactly.
it's only
Yeah,
a couple minutes long.
Yeah, it's like the best of Winger. You know, there's 2 songs and then you move on. You know, but those are good songs, but you just move on. You know? So don't spend a lot of time on the deep cuts. But yeah, no, I like that. And then the end of it is a big montagey wrap up. I mean, they've got to have the moment with Leia and Rey, which we've talked about a little bit, and we have to have. I think we get one of Daisy Ridley's best scenes is when she's sitting there with Finn and he's asleep or whatever, and apparently he's come through surgery at this point, and she's telling him like, I believe we'll see each other again. Like, I know this is not the end of our story, friend. And she kisses him on the forehead and then walks off to go. And I mean, we've also brought back R2-D2, which explain to me what he was in hibernation because Luke disappeared. Was he like? Is it kind of like a dog will do, like it gets depressed when it's ownerly? I'm like, really? I didn't know or was that just part of the plan?
Yeah, I was kind of when C-3PO was saying, yeah, R2 hasn't really been moving. I thought he was dead, and there was literally just his shell. And we're gonna in the flashback, Kylo Ren's gonna kill R2-D2, making him even more evil. But no, he's literally in sleep mode. You just got to press a button, and he'll wake back up.
Yeah, and he and BB-8 worked together to put together the map of convenience, because those damn Jedi archives. I mean, they just didn't keep enough record, and these people with all their technology, Kurt, they've forgotten the power of just make a copy on paper.
Yes, that would help.
Stuff it in a drawer. I mean, you never know what you'll find. But anyway, they find the map, and we go to the Galapagos Islands or wherever Luke is supposed to be here. And this is another scene that I thought went on too long. We see Rey looking at all the stairs she's got to climb up, and then we get a minute and a half of her climbing up the steps, and I'm like, I got it. It's a long way up. It's like I don't need to see all of that, but whatever.
And you're in a spaceship. Can't you just land a few minutes closer?
Yeah. Well, the one thing the Star Trek universe has got on Star Wars is that whole beaming thing. Star Wars never figured that stuff. Probably because they've been at war for so long, they can't work together on anything. So But anyway, imagine what you could accomplish together. So if only Space Obama could have brought everyone together the way he has America. But anyway, but no, we do get the scene though that we've been waiting for, which is Luke taking off that thing, the hood, and he looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it really hit me the second time is his eyes are red. And what I realize is I think we're supposed to think of everything we've been watching. We've essentially been watching Luke watching this. That he has been, doing the force projection bit where he can see and feel things, that he has been experiencing this, and he has just seen one of his best friends die at the hands of his pupil who went wrong. I mean, he's in the turmoil that Obi-Wan Kenobi was in when he had to cut Anakin down. Ewan McGregor's best scene in any of the prequels is after he does that in that whole screaming bit on Mustafar. At him, and they couldn't come up with any better line than "I hate you" for poor Hayden Christensen. But anyway, I mean, it's that same moment again, and then she points out that lightsaber, and he looks at it, and I was like, he's like, I haven't seen that in a long time, and I thought, I bet he's wondering like us, where did you get that?
Yeah.
And I need to hear this story, and I don't know, it's great. It's the right beat to end on, though, because I thought, we've already ended on the big triumph. What is this going to feel like Lord of the Rings? Like it just goes on a little too long? But no, they ended it on the right beat, I think.
Well, I don't know, because Luke Skywalker is one of my favorite, he's one of my favorite characters in cinema history. When I heard Mark Hamill's back, Harrison Ford's back, Leia's back, I thought that I thought it was going to be the trio again, on the Death Star. I thought they were going to be together again. And so it wasn't after Han Solo died, it wasn't until after the movie I realized, oh geez, all this time and Han Solo and Luke never got to have a scene together in the reboot. It's that was pretty that maybe explained why Luke is so glum looking when he turns around, because it's the Luke I know isn't that miserable. Last time we saw him, he had a big smile on his face in the Ewok village celebrating the end of the Empire. And I just wish that when he sees Rey, because clearly he definitely recognized her, if we're going with the fact that it's his daughter, I would have thought that he would be maybe happy to see her, maybe smile. I really think R2 and Chewie should have been standing there behind him. I thought that would have been a great moment if Luke said, "Oh, hey, R2." like just like because they've spent the most time together after Empire and everything, and I wanted him to say just like something, say hello instead of just say the force is strong with you, anything. And the fact that I had a feeling, well, I guess they're going to cut the credits here. I personally think it would have been like nice if the next movie opened with this, or if it was a middle of the next movie reveal that finally here's Luke Skywalker. It just because I love that character so much. I just wish they did. Like they literally had him on screen for 30 seconds. I wanted an hour. I can't help but feel like that.
I'm with you. I wanted him more too, but the fact that I realized quickly this is Han's, goodbye. This is Han's movie. They couldn't have. They'd have shoved him in there, and it would have felt like too much. And so they exercised restraint and said, no, we're just going to tease him at the end. And here's the thing, I want him to pick up right here. Like if they flash ahead, like, wasn't that a great conversation we had on the hill? I'm going to be mad. I'm like, no, we need to pick up right here, and him going, where did you get that? And, like them having a whole conversation. There's actually a good internet meme, by the way, on Reddit about all the things Luke Skywalker's look says. And it's gone from like the real stuff to like, I'm out here and you don't see a Subway or a Starbucks. I got a lightsaber. You couldn't bring a brother a sandwich. You see a liquor store. There's some hilarious, memes from this, as only this generation of the internet could do, and it's funny. But that tells me though that people are going with this. And while I wish he would have had a line, there would have been something. Yeah, I'm almost glad they didn't give him anything. That they just let it be that look that said 1,000 things at once. And again, I think what we're supposed to interpret from it, and at least what I'm getting from it, is that all of what we've been watching, he has seen. This is from his point of view, and he's coming to grips with it all. And now it's on, And
I'll tell you one thing. No one mentions this. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but when the reveal, when Luke turns around and it's Luke, I could swear I hear a little bit of the Empire. Whether it's tuba or trumpets, like when they look at him, like there's the Force theme, but there's a little bit of that bomb.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, like that made me think, oh, maybe Luke's really is gonna go dark, like because he was dark in Jedi. Maybe he has not gotten any cheerier since then. Maybe he has turning a bit into his old man, or something. But I just thought, like, if that was intentional to throw in the Darth Vader theme, seeing Luke, I thought that was genius.
Oh, I think it was intentional. Look, the new music in this movie is terrible. John Williams is bored. But going back to the old themes that work, fantastic. Every time they work it. And again, J.J. Abrams knows how to do this kind of stuff. He's seen all these movies a million times like all of us, and he knows what we want, and he's going to give it to us. And he's going to give us all that little subtle stuff that we can sit and obsess over like we're doing, and have for the last 2 hours, and could go on 2 more about, because it is entertaining, and sure. We'll get to it in a minute. I kind of want to hear where you think it's going to go in episode 8, but want to get first final thoughts, recommendations, popcorn ratings. What are yours for Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens?
Well, let me break it down like this. It's turned out to be a killer year for movies. It just keeps getting better the more I catch up. And it's been a huge year for old guard movie series, because before Star Wars, we had a Mad Max movie this summer. We had Creed, aka Rocky VII. We had James Bond and Spectre. And no one is more surprised than me that the latest Rocky movie and the latest Mad Max movie are my current number 1 and number 2 favorite movies of the year. No one's more blown away by that than me. I was really kind of hoping that this movie would have that chance of it, like Empire Strikes Back being the best movie of its year. But sadly, at the moment, Episode 7 is maybe number 10 right now. I need to rejigger my list a bit after seeing The Revenant. So who knows where Star Wars might end up on my list. However, 2015 movies is one thing, but the main thing is how you stack it up against Star Wars movies, because there's really not much else you can compare a Star Wars movie to other than other Star Wars movies. And out of the 7, not counting Clone Wars, because screw that, no one saw that.
Hey, you notice it's not a part of our retrospectives.
No, it's not. Yeah, and for me, if I was going to break down the ranking of the series, it would go like this, starting from top to bottom. Episode 5, 4, 3, 6, 7, 2, 1. So 7 is right between Jedi and clones. I'm probably the only person on the planet that even has Revenge of the Sith in the top 3 at all, above Jedi and Force Awakens, but that's just how it goes. Darth Vader being in your movie just gives him more points for me. But But even then, I still think it's a terrific movie. Like the bottom half of the Star Wars series is still miles ahead of most movies. I mean, we had Avengers 2. I mean, like this movie blows that movie away in every conceivable way. And this movie is what a Star Wars movie should be. Never got me to the point of tears like I was hoping, but making me smile that much will do just fine. Having the most pulse-pounding moment of any movie this year, more pulse-pounding than anything I saw in The Hateful Eight, Sicario, Mad Max, just like that scene of where you just know Han Solo is going to die. Both times seeing it, just like I felt I was going to have a heart attack, like the best scenes in Game of Thrones or something, where you feel like someone is going to die and just destroying you. But the bottom line is, if this is where Disney and the filmmakers are taking Star Wars, I'm on board. I'll be the first in line for Episode 8 by Rian Johnson and Episode 9 by Colin Trevorrow, even though he made one of the worst movies of 2015 for me with Jurassic World. Star Wars supersedes that. I'll give Trevorrow another shot. I had such a blast watching this movie both times. It improved on the rewatch, which doesn't always happen. Usually it's the exact opposite. But Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens, is one of my favorite movies of the year, and it gets an extra large popcorn for me.
I thought long and hard about how I wanted to sum this movie up, and I actually got the answer from something else that happened on my holiday. I dumped a ton of music on my iPod because I knew I was going to be traveling a lot, and I would just hit shuffle when I was driving, sitting around doing nothing, whatever, and listening to things. And one of the songs I put on there is Don Henley's The Boys of Summer, which is absolutely one of my favorite songs ever. It's a fantastic tune. And I also happened to put the cover of that song that a band called the Ataris did back in like 1999 and 2000. They're one of those emo rock bands from that era. And I like that cover. And I liken The Force Awakens to the Ataris version of The Boys of Summer. It's a really good cover of a song I really like. And I'm down for that. And I feel like that's a good way to understand this movie. There's nothing terribly original. There's a few little flips and turns, but it's the difference in a clean guitar versus a distorted one, whatever. I'm going with it, and I'm with you. If this is what they're going to do with the franchise, I'm in line. I will not go spoiler-free, blind into another one. I think I've done that now. I feel like, okay, I've done that. I want to go back to doing it the way I always do now and know what's going into. But I'm going to be first in line to go see it again too. And I'm down for it because this was fun. That's the thing is, for all the things the prequels were, there were moments of fun, but by and large, they're not very fun movies. This is a fun ride the whole way. It's exactly what I wanted from a Star Wars movie for a long time, and I got everything I was in for. It's not perfect, though. And if I had to rank them in the series order, I mean, for me, I put the fourth one and the fifth one 1 and 2, and they could almost be 1A and 1B. But really, the New Hope is my favorite one. And then the third one for me, has been Revenge of the Sith for a long time. You and I have that in common, that we keep that one high. I would put this one probably right there, and then Return of the Jedi, and then Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. That's how I would go with them. I think this one's a good 4-spotter. It's not perfect, but you know what? It can't be, because what J.J. Abrams is trying to do is get everybody excited about Star Wars again, and mission accomplished. Because that is exactly what the Force awakens in Rey or whomever or whatever, but what really awakens is everybody got excited about Star Wars again. And the fact that the thing got hyped up as much as it was and has been marketed to death, and Disney's gonna, I've seen so much Star Wars stuff. Like, you can buy a Star Wars coffee mug. I got 2 from different people for Christmas this year. I got T-shirts, and stuff, and I hadn't even seen the movie yet. People are giving me Star Wars stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, we figured you liked the new movie." I'm like, "Still hadn't seen it." But anyway, so because I'm here, but I'm gonna go see it. So anyway, but I wore my Star Wars shirt to the movie, as it turned out. So I love it. I had a good time with it, but it's not, to me, I can't put it on the same level as those originals. So I can't give it the extra large. I give it a good solid large popcorn, and I think it's perfect as that. And I'm ready to see where they go. And that's my question to you, because I have no idea. Where do you think they go in Episode 8? What do you think's to come?
Well, I'm hoping that if Episode 7 is a copy of A New Hope, I hope they don't just do that for the rest of this next trilogy. I hope that
Amen.
I really hope Episode 8 is, well, I guess that means Luke is going to reveal that it's her father, that he's Rey's father at the last minute or something. There's going to be like everyone's going to be waiting for a reveal because it's the next Empire. I really hope Rian Johnson has something a little fresher than that, and I think he does. Rian Johnson's a favorite director of mine. He did a couple of movies I freaking love, like Brick and Looper, and what I think is the best.
Looper's great, yeah.
Looper is awesome, and he also did what I think is the best episode of Breaking Bad in the final season. The episode is the beginning of the end for Walter White, and it is something else to see. I was more excited about Rian Johnson being on Star Wars than J.J. Abrams being on Star Wars. But what I want is Luke. I would love it if if Han Solo is the center of Episode 7. I would love it if Luke is the center of Episode 8. I hope he doesn't die this time, though. And I really would like to get more focus on Kylo Ren as a character. I really want to see how Luke and Kylo Ren hooked up. Because Kylo Ren doesn't talk about that too much, but I want to see what Luke had in mind, how Kylo Ren destroyed that. I just want to see that, and I just want to see more Poe Dameron in the next movie, because I just feel like he did not have enough screen time, and I think the torch might have been passed between Han Solo and Poe Dameron a bit. And I just want to see more of that guy, but. Whatever it is, I mean, like I said, I'm going to be first in line to see it. Even if I hear it, even if I hear it's terrible, I'm going to see this thing probably on the opening day.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm going to see it when it comes out either way, no matter what. And we'll be back around to talk about that one then. So, matter of fact, we've got something in between though. They're going to do one of the spin-off movies that they talked about. They're going to do Rogue One, which, as I understand, is the story of stealing the plans of the Death Star, where many Bothans died. For this, right? I'm down for that too, man. So we'll have to reconvene and talk about Rogue One as just a side spin to the Star Wars universe and see what they can do with it. It should be fun. We're just getting started here in 2016. Got lots of cool things planned here on Filmstrip, but as always, we appreciate your support, folks. You can go to our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Search through our entire back catalog, over 160 reviews, and I mean, gosh, we've done it all. I mean, everything from like the cheesiest things you can ever think of, like movies like No Holds Barred and Critters 4 and stuff like that, to actual good pieces of cinema like Heat and Gladiator and some of those kind of things. Kurt, you've been on some of those. All kinds of stuff. We've hit every genre, a lot of horror, a lot of sci-fi, a little bit of comedy, action, you name it. We've hit it at some point. So check it out. Give us a review on iTunes. Helps other people find the show. Follow us on Twitter. You can find us at Continuous Play Podcast. You can also find me and Kurt. And hey, Kurt, people can find you on Facebook and join your Facebook group, The Fabish Factor.
Absolutely can. Find us on The Fabish Factor on Facebook. And as for The Fabish Factor podcast, kind of been on a bit of a hiatus in 2015 due to lack of maybe just everything. But we're going to be back on track 2016 if things work out, working on a Tarantino big ass retrospective. And I promise at some point we're going to get that Game of Thrones season 4 show. It will happen at some point. And season 5, of course.
Yeah, we'll have to get into those. We're still going to release those before George R.R. Martin does another book. I promise you that.
That's right.
So
I'm waiting on him now.
Yeah, so we're going to be ahead of him at some point again. But yeah, lots of good stuff to check out. And of course, like I said, we're going to have a lot of cool stuff coming up in 2016. I'll go ahead and tell you now, 2 retrospectives we've got planned. We've done some big horror series, but there's 2 we haven't tackled yet, and we're going to get to them this year. We're going to do Friday the 13th, and we're going to do Nightmare on Elm Street. So looking forward to being a part of those. That's going to be fun. Ron, Nick, and I will get back together and finish up Paranormal Activity as we finally got to where we could all see it again. At one point, I think I had to drive like 80 miles to go see it, and Nick never got it in within 100 miles of where he was. So we had to wait for it to go to direct to video because one of the worst marketing ideas of all time. But we'll talk about that on that show once we get there. But all kinds of cool stuff coming up. Those are 2 big horror series, but we've got some fun one-offs playing too. I mean, Brian and I have been kind of kicking around some stuff we've been wanting to do for a while, and some other things that'll make appearances here and there along the way. You mentioned one in that pile there I wouldn't mind getting into, and that might be Looper. That might be a fun review because there's lots to talk about in that little piece of sci-fi there. So we'll see what we can do along the way. Of course, folks, thanks for joining us again, and thank you for your support. Until next time, for Kurt, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Please leave us a positive review on iTunes and link up with us on Facebook. The film strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121.